If you work in university maintenance, Granger considers you an MVP because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Granger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more. And all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRANGER, visit Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Maybe you recognize this voice. Andy Betterman here of the injury law firm Greenberg & Betterman. For over 35 years, we've been helping people in the DMV with auto accidents and medical malpractice. Get a free consultation by visiting gblawyers.com and feel better.
It got me to thinking about what or whom would I want to interview if I got the opportunity to interview that I haven't interviewed on this podcast, and this person could be dead or alive. So I wrote down a few people who I would love to interview, and I'm going to throw the question to you. If given the opportunity, if you could interview anybody from history, past or present, dead or alive, who would you interview? Here's mine. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. I want to thank you all for tuning in as you do each and every week. Shout out to those of you who are watching on YouTube as well as Spotify. Man, check this out. Okay. I was scrolling the internet the other day and I came across someone who was interviewing a quote unquote superstar. And while the clip was very popular, and I'm not going to tell you who it was because it's irrelevant at this point, but the clip of the person interviewing this superstar, it was intriguing, but it wasn't something that I was going to sit and watch because it was probably a 7-minute clip. And I have this thing where I only watch clips that are like no longer than a minute or two. Just because if I can't get into it after a minute or two, then it's not worth me watching. Nonetheless, the little bit of the interview that I saw, it quickly struck me that the celebrity that was being interviewed was incredibly boring. And the interviewer was doing everything they could to kind of engage and pull along the interviewee, and it really wasn't working. And I think a lot of times we see this on social media, but we still tap in or we still listen because there's going to be a funny clip or there's going to be a clip where they say something outlandish that'll make all the headlines. I'm not into that. I'll be honest. I'm really into watching interviews or documentaries for that matter, where I'm going to learn something about the subject person that's being interviewed. Obviously, it helps if the interviewer has done their homework. But a lot of times, it looks and feels like the interviewer is doing everything they can to get to the next question, and they're not asking, I don't want to say the right questions, but they're missing bits and pieces of the conversation because they're being trained or they've been trained to move on to the next one without piggybacking on whatever they have just asked. Just full disclosure, you guys, if you follow this podcast, you've heard me interview people. You've heard me interview my friends. I don't genuinely come into those conversations with anything written down to talk about. I mean, like, I have bullet points in my head, but every question, subsequently after the first question is based off of what's being said. So I can find different ways and different pockets to settle into a conversation. And had I not just told you that I don't have questions going into the interview, you would have never known. That being said, it got me to thinking about what or whom would I want to interview if I got the opportunity to interview that I haven't interviewed on this podcast, and this person could be dead or alive. So I wrote down a few people who I would love to interview, and I'm going to throw the question to you. If given the opportunity, if you could interview anybody from history, past or present, dead or alive, who would you interview? Here's mine. First up, and these are in no particular order, I would love to sit down and interview a young lady by the name of Gladys Carson. Now, I know what you're thinking. Like, wow, who? Gladys Carson. Man, I remember her. She was great. She was dope. None of you have ever heard Gladys Carson. I'm willing to bet outside of maybe 5 people, none of you have ever heard of Gladys Carson. Gladys Carson is my grandmother. She is my maternal grandmother. I affectionately refer to her as Granny. Granny was, by all accounts, everybody has told me all my life that she is unequivocally the sweetest woman to ever walk the face of the earth. I can believe that based on my experiences with her. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time with Granny. By the time I was 6 years old, Granny passed away. I think I was going on 7. So, but I have great memories of her. I just don't have a lot of memories of her. I at least like not as many as, let's say, my kids have with their grandparents. Because they've got years and years and years, and I only had 6 years. And my kids' grandparents, still living. They still spend time with them all the time. Talk to them, text, whatever. But I would love to have a conversation with Gladys Carson because, again, that's my granny. But I would just want to, pick her brain and find out, what her life was like. I mean, I've heard stories, but she was a young woman who grew up in the segregated Jim Crow South in the 1920s. And she lived a different kind of life. She saw a lot. And she went through a lot. I can imagine as a woman, there was a point in time where she couldn't go anywhere, where she could only go certain places because Black people weren't allowed to go certain places. There was a part of her life where she couldn't vote. So all of those things I would love to pick her brain about. She and my grandfather had 6 kids, and I would like to know what was the married life hidden for, like in 1955, because you're raising 6 kids and you're trying to figure it out, And my grandmother came from a big family, like her sister. We call her Aunt Jessie Mae. Shout out to Aunt Jessie Mae, passed away many years ago. But Aunt Jessie Mae had 14 kids. And so my grandmother had 6. So like you can kind of tell like within their sibling group, and that's just those 2. I'm not even going to tell you about it, the other siblings. So it's a big family. I come from a very, very big family. When we have family reunions, it's huge. And it's only 12 descendants of my great grandparents. So there are 12 kids, and subsequently the tree branches grow outwardly. But yeah, I would want to, find out how life was for her in Florence, South Carolina, as she raised my mom and her 5 siblings. But yeah, I miss her. I miss her a lot. I think one of the things that always intrigues me is I know she's in heaven watching, but I wonder what she thinks of her grandson. I'd like to think that she's proud, but I miss my granny, and I tell people all the time, man, enjoy these people. I tell my kids all the time, like your grandparents are a walking encyclopedia. They can tell, they're walking Google. They can tell you any and everything about everything. And they've seen a lot and they've experienced a lot. I just didn't have but 6 years with my grandmother. And I remember to this day, the day that she passed, she'd been in coma for a couple of months, I think. And she was in Duke Medical Hospital in Durham, North Carolina. And, it was tough. I remember we went to go see her. I didn't see her, but my mom did. And, it was tough. It was tough. And it hurts, obviously, to lose, the matriarch of the family. And I remember going into a room at my aunt's house, and when we walked through the living room, all we saw was these adults and everybody was crying. I was like trying to figure out, what the hell going on? And my older cousin, Mike kind of knew because he's older than us. But I think so. If I was 6, Mike had to be like 10 or 11. So he kind of was hip to the game as to what was going on. And my uncle came in and told us that she had passed away. And even at that particular time, I didn't understand what dying meant. I didn't know that she was dead, but I didn't know what that meant. But nonetheless, I would love to have a conversation with her. If I could talk to her, I'd ask her what she thought about me and what I've become as a young man. And am I carrying on the family tradition? Am I making her proud? Am I making everybody proud, our ancestors proud? I think I know the answer to it, but I would just love to hear Granny say what I think she would say. Who else? Again, these are no particular order. I'm going to go with a historical figure. Malcolm X. Malcolm X is one of the most intriguing members of our history ever. I think it's interesting, and I always talk about this, that given the fact that I grew up where I grew up in Florence, South Carolina, I went to Wilson High School, and then subsequently went to South Carolina State University. My high school is predominantly black. My middle school is black. My elementary school is black. Obviously, my college was black. And very little mention of Malcolm X. Well, actually, I learned more about Malcolm X in college than I did at any other time. There was always, these Black history celebrations, and nobody ever mentioned Malcolm X. They always talked about Dr. King, Rosa Parks, Thurgood Marshall, Frederick Douglass, but nobody talks about Malcolm X. And by the time I became a freshman in college at South Carolina State University, I understood why. People will tell you that Malcolm was a controversial figure. He wasn't. He was all but controversial. Malcolm X spoke a lot of what we still see to this day. But more than anything else, if you cut through his message, one of the things that Malcolm taught and preached was about us sticking together as a people. And the idea and the concept of, building our own communities, staying in our own communities, circulating the black dollar. Those are things that we strive for to this day. And while we can succeed and do succeed in some areas, in a lot of ways we don't. And I would love to sit down and have a conversation with Malcolm X. Is very intriguing to me. If you ever get a chance, just go on YouTube and you can do one or two things. You can either look at and listen to one of his speeches, or you can check out his interviews. He is as calm and as calculated and as thorough as you would ever want anyone to be. I'm always impressed. I'm always impressed with anything he says in those interviews, because a lot of ways when you hear and see these interviews, the person that's interviewing him, whether they be black or white, they're trying to push him in a certain direction to answer the question in a certain direction. And Malcolm never goes the way that you think he's going to go.
Working across teams is tough, but Asana helps you handle it. That's because Asana is where humans and AI coordinate work together. AI can spot roadblocks and assign work in a snap, so everything and everyone stays on track. That's how work gets handled. That's Asana. Visit us at asana.com. That's ASANA.com.
When you manage procurement for multiple facilities, every order matters. But when it's for a hospital system, they matter even more. Grainger gets it and knows there's no time for managing multiple suppliers and no room for shipping delays. That's why Grainger offers millions of products in fast, dependable delivery, so you can keep your facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
And I love that about it. But the man was very knowledgeable, left this earth way too soon through no fault of his own. But yeah, if I got a chance to sit down with Brother Malcolm, man, listen, I would ask for 30 minutes, but I probably get an hour worth of conversation because, you know, you don't really, you can ask one question and Malcolm may send you down 4 different roads and you can ask follow-up questions going down those roads. He's just that great. But yeah, I would definitely dead or alive conversation. Malcolm X for sure. Who else? If I got a chance to interview someone, it would definitely be President Barack Obama. Barack Obama is very, very intelligent. He had a extremely difficult job in running the free world and running the United States, and I think he did it to the best of his ability. I thought he was a very good president, very good, great president, in fact. I don't necessarily know that we'll ever see a president like that, and I don't mean as far as him being black, but I don't know that we'll ever see a president of that nature in that particular time. Barack Obama came to this country and hit the political scene at the right time. And it was a whirlwind. And it spawned a lot of great things that happened in this country. A lot of great things that happened to me personally that I've touched on several episodes. I'm not going to get into on this particular episode, but yeah, President Obama was the one. Very charismatic, a very great orator. And I think his ability to be an orator was very key because in his speeches, he could convey a certain message and a certain feeling and a certain vibe to the listener or the people in the audience that would captivate you. And again, if we're being honest, keep it a bean. I mean, he inherited or took over for, following behind George W. Bush, a country that was in shambles in many ways. And he did the best that he could. Did he have missteps? Yes, he did. He wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but that's to be expected also. Nobody's perfect. For as great as I think I am, or as great as I know that I am, I couldn't run this country. Not like that. No, especially not with that level of opposition in your own, sometimes in your own party, but, across the aisle as well. No, it would be extremely difficult. But he handled it. But I would love to sit down and have a one-on-one with him. I know at this particular time, he doesn't do a lot of interviews, but President Obama, if you're watching, because I know you watch, I know you tap into the 12 Kyle podcast. Shoot me a DM, man. I would love to have you on the podcast. Love to have you come on. We could talk a little bit about politics. We talk a little sports because you're an avid sports fan. We can talk about life in general. Whatever you want to talk about, it's your show. So I would love to have you on. But President Barack Obama is definitely someone that I would want to sit down and have a conversation with. Let's take it to music. This should come as no surprise to you, but my favorite artist in any genre of music is Prince Rogers Nelson. And I would absolutely love to have a conversation with Prince Rogers Nelson. Prince, for the most part, particularly when he was in his prime, he didn't do a lot of interviews, relatively speaking. And to be honest, we lived in an era where you really couldn't get close to people like that. So, the idea of sitting down and having a conversation in front of a microphone and a camera with someone like Prince or Michael Jackson was simply unheard of. It just didn't happen a lot. No matter who you were, even if they were promoting an album, yeah, you might get Prince to come play at, the Tonight Show, but getting him to sit down and talk, Not as much. Arsenio could do it. Shout out to Arsenio. But outside Arsenio, I mean, it wasn't a lot of times where in his prime, you were going to be able to get the purple one to sit down and talk. But I would love to chop it up with Prince and talk about music, obviously, his music, because I'm such a fan. And I'm such a fan of how he carried himself business-wise. And Prince, to his credit, stayed Prince, from start to finish. And he was unapologetically Prince, and he was going to do it his way. And I think as a musician and as a businessman and as an artist, you got to respect that, because he wasn't going to conform, and he wasn't going to let anybody make him make the art that they wanted him to make. He was going to make the music that he wanted to make. And I think that's very apropos for where we are, because just from an artistic perspective, you want to be able to produce and make the kind of music that you want to do. Now, you're going to have people at the label saying, hey, you should make this song, or it should look this way or sound this way. Prince wasn't having that. He was always going to be about himself and giving people what it was that he thought he should be delivering. And say what you want. I think he did every time out. Now, whether or not you liked it or not, that was something different. But he made the music that he wanted to make. And I think that's respectable. And I think ultimately, I would love to sit down and talk to him about just that thing and the process of making songs, and why these certain albums look a certain way, or why this feels a certain way, or why this chord sound. I mean, listen, if you've been following this podcast or the Rap Soul podcast long enough, you know that I am what you would call a music nerd. Like I love music. It's entrenched in me. As I've gotten older, the technicalities of music really intrigued me, because for the most part, we weren't around when this music was getting made. So if you weren't around, it makes the music that much more special to you, because now that you're here, you can go back and listen to how something was made, and it makes what you hear sound even better. And so I would love to sit down and have a conversation with Prince. The last musician I'll talk about, James DeWitt Yancey, a.k.a. JD, a.k.a. J Dilla, a.k.a. the greatest beat maker of all time, in my personal opinion. Yeah, man, Dilla was crazy. Dilla, I don't even really know how to describe his music if you haven't heard it. Now, if you have never heard any music from J Dilla, I will assume that you don't go anywhere, because it's not even humanly possible to not have heard some music from the late great James DeWitt Yancey. But I would definitely want to sit down with Dilla, because Dilla was someone who I think I may have heard 5 interviews from J Dilla his entire career. And that's just off the top of my head. I cannot remember him having a lot of, sit down one-on-one interviews. The one sit down interview that I can remember, that was years. I mean, like, J Dilla passed so long ago, but I mean, like, this might have been early 2000s, maybe, or maybe 99, 98, 99, somewhere around there. So the scarcity of being able to get to him is one thing, but also, being able to tap in with him and understand why this music sounds the way that he did. I mean, like, I'll give you an example. His last album, Donuts, which, as many people will tell you, he literally and figuratively crafted a lot of that music on his deathbed. I would have questions as to how or why certain things on that album particularly sound the way that they do, because it's crazy. I mean, like, you don't think that you could put that kind of music together. And I don't know if people could put that kind of music together being awake, upright, and conscious. For somebody to be able to do that while literally, having tubes and stuff plugged in, hooked up to them, I don't know how he did it. But I mean, a great, great young man. If you watch it on YouTube, you see the book, the J Dilla book, Dilla Time. Shout out to Dan Charnas, who wrote the book. It's an incredible read. I would suggest that all of you, in order to get a little bit better understanding of Dilla, check that out. But I would definitely want to sit down and talk to Dilla. So, in conclusion, I think it's important that we all identify, people that we would love to sit down and talk to, particularly as podcasters, dead or alive, in a conversation. A lot of times it's going to be relatives, maybe family members, friends who we've lost. And then sometimes it could be people who are still here that you would love to sit, like, somebody who didn't make the list. I guess if you want to make him an honorable mention, would be Questlove from The Roots. Man, Questlove he's my kind of nerd. He's my kind of music nerd, man. I love Questlove. I would, if it were not for the fact that I know Questlove has 50,000 jobs and he's got 1,000,001 things going on, I don't think I could pull Questlove's arm long enough to get him on the podcast for an hour. If I could, because I don't think Questlove listens to this podcast. He may. I mean, he may be like President Obama. He may tap in every week. That being said, I would, he'd be my honorable mention. But I think it's important, particularly for those of us who are podcasters, to identify people who we would want to interview. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to interview them, but I think to some degree, if you put that idea out there in the atmosphere, who knows? You never know. So for me, probably honorable mention Questlove, and second honorable mention Fonte from The Roots. He's done people's podcasts before, not the big podcast. He'll do a small podcast or independent podcast like mine. So yeah, if you got any connections to Fonte, let me know. I would love to have him on the podcast as well. But in all actuality, I think it's important. For me, it's a good exercise, and also a chance to give people their flowers, whether or not they're here or gone away. I think that's important. And I think as long as we do that, we keep their name, their legacy, and their memory forever alive. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We drop new episodes every week. If you're on YouTube, check us out. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe with your friends. Also, remember, we have a new baby. The new baby is called the Rap Soul Podcast. It is the podcast that is the intersection where we have discussions about music and artists from the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s when it comes to rap, soul, and R&B. Simply put, folks, it's the best music podcast that you've never heard. So make sure that you check it out. If you'd like to contribute to this podcast financially, hit us up on Cash App. $TWELVEKYLE. Also, we have merch. We have merch. Click the link in the description box. Click the merch link, and that way you can purchase 12 Kyle Podcast t-shirts, hoodies, as well as coffee mugs. We got it for the low. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle Podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I will catch you guys next time. 5,000. Cheers.
If you work in university maintenance, Grainger considers you an MVP because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Grainger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more. And all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, visit Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
When the insurance company doesn't pay what you deserve after you've been hurt in an auto accident, the law firm of Greenberg & Betterman is here to help you. Get a free consultation today. Visit gblawyers.com. That's gblawyers.com, and feel better.